Chosen one, why do you wake up every morning feeling like you've been fighting wars in your sleep? Why does your body ache with exhaustion that 8 hours of rest can't touch? Why do you carry a bone-deep weariness that doctors can't explain and rest can't cure? Stop. Right there. Feel that stirring in your chest as these words hit your spirit. That's not coincidence, that's recognition. You didn't stumble across this message while mindlessly scrolling through your phone at 2 a.m., unable to sleep again. Heaven intercepted your scroll. The divine guided your finger to this exact moment, because what I'm about to reveal will shatter every lie you've believed about your exhaustion. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been told you're tired because you're getting old, that it's normal, that it's just part of life's natural decline. But what if I told you that's the cruelest deception ever whispered into the ears of God's chosen ones? Chosen one, do you ever wake up like you've just run a marathon in your sleep? Like your soul traveled miles while your body lay still? Do you feel that invisible weight pressing down on your chest when you open your eyes each morning? That's not aging, beloved. That's not weakness. That's not your body giving up. That's your spirit carrying loads that aren't visible to the natural eye. You've been fighting battles in realms most people don't even believe exist. You've been absorbing pain that isn't yours, carrying burdens that weren't meant for your shoulders, giving energy to people who take but never replenish. Your weariness isn't random. It's sacred. It's the evidence of a soul operating at frequencies this world was never designed to sustain. But here's the truth that will change everything. Your tiredness is not a sign of defeat. It's proof of your divine assignment. Before we journey deeper into this mystery together, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let your heart guide you. Right now, if something deep inside you is stirring, if every word I'm speaking is hitting places in your spirit you thought were dead, I need you to do something powerful. Type in the comments the number that's calling to your soul, 770. 7 if you're ready for spiritual awakening, 444 if you need divine protection, or 999 if you sense something in your life is ending to make room for something greater. Let heaven see your declaration. Let other chosen ones know they're not alone in this sacred exhaustion. By the time we reach the end of this message, you'll understand why your tiredness is not weakness, it's sacred proof of who you are, what you carry, and why the enemy has been working overtime to drain the very life force from God's most powerful warriors. This isn't just another video about being tired. This is your divine awakening to the spiritual warfare you've been unconsciously fighting, and how to finally win. Why do you feel like a ghost in your own life? Why do your own children look at you like you're speaking a foreign language when you try to share what's really in your heart? Why does the world rush past you like you're invisible, while inside you're screaming that you still matter, you still have something to give? Listen to me, dear chosen one. That crushing loneliness you feel isn't just about growing older. That exhaustion that follows you from room to room, from sunrise to sunset, isn't just your body wearing down. What you're experiencing is something far deeper, far more sacred than the world could ever understand. You're carrying an invisible backpack of weights that no one else can see. Every step you take, every breath you draw, you're hauling generations of battles on your shoulders. Your grandmother's unfinished prayers, your father's silent struggles, your mother's unspoken dreams, they're all there, pressing down on your spirit like stones in a sack that never gets lighter. And society tells you to smile about it. Be grateful for your golden years. Enjoy retirement. But how can you enjoy anything when your soul feels like it's been fighting a war that nobody else acknowledges exists? Your body aches, but it's your spirit carrying generations of battles. The prophet Elijah knew this weight. After his greatest victory on Mount Carmel, calling down fire from heaven, defeating 450 false prophets, what happened next? 1 Kings 19:4 tells us he collapsed under a broom tree and begged God to let him die. "I have had enough, Lord," he whispered. "Take my life." This wasn't depression, chosen one. This was spiritual exhaustion from carrying divine purpose in a hostile world. Job groaned in his silence, crying out in Job 7:4, "When I lie down, I think, how long before I get up? The night drags on, and I toss and turn until dawn." He wasn't just sleepless. He was wrestling with invisible forces that tormented his spirit while his body tried to rest. David hid in caves, writing Psalm 142:4. "Look and see, there is no one at my right hand. No one is concerned for me. I have no refuge. No one cares for my life." The future king of Israel felt abandoned, forgotten, carrying a crown that no one else could see. Sound familiar? That's because you're walking the same path they walked, the path of the chosen. But here's what breaks my heart. Your own family doesn't understand. They see you sitting quietly at the dinner table and think you're just tired. They watch you withdraw from conversations and assume you're losing interest in life. They notice you need more rest and whisper among themselves that maybe it's time to start making arrangements. They don't see the spiritual warfare you're fighting every night at 3 a.m. when you wake up with your heart pounding for no medical reason. They don't feel the weight of every prayer you've ever prayed for them still hanging on your chest. They don't know that your silence isn't emptiness, it's fullness. You're so full of wisdom, so full of experiences, so full of divine encounters that words feel inadequate. You've become a living bridge between heaven and earth, and bridges carry weight from both sides. The culture dismisses you as irrelevant. The medical system medicates your spiritual symptoms. Even the church sometimes treats you like you're just waiting for glory, instead of recognizing you're actively carrying it. But what you've called exhaustion, heaven calls evidence, evidence that your soul has been fighting for things your eyes can't even see. You're not tired because you're old. You're tired because you're powerful. You're not weary because you're weak. You're weary because you've been wrestling with principalities and powers that most people never even encounter. Every generation before you deposited their unfinished spiritual business into your bloodline. Every ancestor who couldn't complete their divine assignment passed the baton to you. You're not just living your own life, you're completing theirs. You're breaking generational curses they couldn't break. You're praying prayers they didn't know how to pray. You're carrying lights they couldn't keep burning. That's why you feel so heavy, dear one. That's why 8 hours of sleep feels like 8 minutes. That's why your bones ache with a pain that has no name in medical textbooks. Your exhaustion is holy. Your weariness is sacred. Your need for solitude isn't antisocial, it's spiritual. You're not withdrawing from life. You're going deeper into it, into the places where heaven and earth meet, where the veil is thin, where the real battles are fought and won. But here's the question that will determine everything about your remaining years on this earth. Will you continue carrying this weight alone? Or will you finally understand that your tiredness is actually a doorway into discovering the supernatural strength that's been waiting inside you all along? Because what I'm about to show you next will change how you see every ache, every sleepless night, every moment when you feel too tired to take another step. Chosen one, let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to your soul. How many nights this week have you jolted awake at exactly 3:17 a.m.? Heart pounding, breath shallow, feeling like you've been running through spiritual battlefields while your body never left the bed. You lie there in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, wondering why sleep feels more like warfare than rest. Your joints ache, your mind races. That familiar heaviness settles over your chest like an invisible weight you can't name or shake off. The world calls this insomnia. The medical community labels it sleep disorders. But I'm here to tell you something that will shake you to your core. That's not insomnia, beloved. That's your spirit doing night missions. While your neighbors sleep peacefully, while the world rests in ignorant bliss, your soul enters realms most people don't even believe exist. You think you're just tossing and turning, but your spirit is actively engaged in spiritual warfare that would leave stronger souls shattered. Daniel understood this reality. In Daniel 10:8, he describes his encounter with the divine. "I had no strength left, my face turned deathly pale, and I was helpless." Even this mighty prophet was physically drained after supernatural encounters. Your exhaustion isn't weakness, chosen one. It's evidence. Every restless dream that feels more real than reality itself, every vision that haunts you for days, every moment you wake up knowing you've been somewhere else, fighting battles you can barely remember but your body can't forget. These aren't accidents of an aging mind. These are assignments. You see, the enemy knows something about you that you're just beginning to remember. He knows that when you sleep, when your conscious mind finally quiets, your spirit becomes incredibly dangerous to his kingdom. So he sends his forces to exhaust you, to break you down, to make you believe you're losing your mind instead of winning spiritual wars. Think about Jacob wrestling with the angel all night in Genesis 32. By morning, he was forever changed, forever marked, but also forever powerful. He limped away from that encounter, but he walked away as Israel, the one who wrestles with God and prevails. Your midnight wrestling matches aren't random, dear one. They're refining you. Every spiritual battle you fight in the darkness is forging something unbreakable within you. The Apostle Paul knew this truth when he wrote in Ephesians 6:12, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age." But here's what breaks my heart. You've been fighting these battles alone, thinking something's wrong with you. You wake up exhausted and assume you're broken, when the truth is you've been doing the work of 10 prayer warriors while the world sleeps. Those dreams where you're running through dark corridors, fleeing unseen enemies, that's not your subconscious playing tricks. That's your spirit actively engaging forces that want to keep you small, confused, and defeated. Those moments when you wake up with unexplained anxiety, feeling like you've been in a spiritual boxing match, you have been. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on empty targets. Hell doesn't deploy its strongest demons against people who pose no threat. But you've been in Satan's crosshairs since the day you were born, because he saw what God planted inside you. You're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you're powerful. You're not exhausted because you're broken. You're exhausted because you're dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Every 3 a.m. awakening is proof that your spirit operates on a frequency that disturbs evil itself. Every restless night is evidence that you carry something so precious, so threatening to hell's agenda, that demonic forces work overtime, trying to drain your strength before you fully awaken to who you are. But listen carefully, chosen one. What the enemy meant for your destruction, God is using for your development. Every spiritual battle you fight in the darkness is building spiritual muscle you'll need for the daylight assignments ahead. Every night mission is training you for warfare most believers never experience. Your insomnia isn't a curse, it's a calling. Your restless sleep isn't punishment, it's preparation. Your midnight battles aren't breaking you down. They're building you up into a warrior who can stand when others fall. If you've felt those midnight awakenings, if you know exactly what I'm talking about, if you've been wondering why sleep brings no rest, type 444 inches the comments right now. Let the other chosen ones know you are not alone. Let heaven see that you're finally understanding the war you've been fighting. Because once you understand that your tiredness comes from spiritual victory, not spiritual defeat, everything changes. Once you realize you've been winning battles you didn't even know you were fighting, your exhaustion transforms from shame into honor. But there's something else you need to know about why your energy feels so depleted. Something that happens not just in the darkness of night, but in the brightness of day. You know what breaks my heart? It's watching God's chosen ones apologize for needing rest. It's seeing 70-year-old warriors who fought battles most people can't even imagine, suddenly believing they're worthless because the world told them their productive years are over. Listen to me, chosen one. The exhaustion you feel isn't coming from your age. It's coming from trying to survive in a system that was never designed for souls like yours. This world operates on one brutal principle: produce or perish, hustle or be forgotten, move fast or get left behind. But here's what they don't tell you. This machine wasn't built for people who carry eternity in their hearts. It wasn't designed for those who feel deeply, who pray without ceasing, who carry burdens that aren't even their own. You've spent decades trying to keep up with a pace that was meant to break you. While others chase promotions and possessions, your soul has been aching for something deeper. While they celebrate busyness, your spirit craves stillness. While they worship productivity, you've been called to something sacred: presence, wisdom, intercession. And then society has the audacity to tell you that because you can't run their rat race anymore, you're disposable. How many of you have felt that crushing weight of being seen as irrelevant? How many times have you sat in a room where younger voices dominated, making you feel like your decades of experience meant nothing? How many family gatherings have you endured where you felt more like furniture than family? That's not God's voice, beloved. That's the voice of a world that measures worth by output instead of input from heaven. Let me tell you something that will shake you to your core. You were never meant to keep up. You were meant to wake up. The system demands constant motion, but your spirit requires sacred rhythm. Isaiah 40:31 promises, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Wait on the Lord, not rush ahead of Him, not prove your worth through endless activity. Wait. There's power in the pause that this world will never understand. But here's where it gets controversial. Your fatigue isn't a sign that you're broken. Your need for quiet isn't weakness. Your inability to tolerate the noise and chaos of modern life isn't antisocial behavior. It's spiritual discernment. Your soul recognizes what doesn't belong. Your spirit rejects what isn't life-giving. Your energy withdraws from what doesn't align with heaven's frequency. And the world calls this depression, isolation, or decline. But God calls it wisdom. Think about Jesus Himself. In Mark 1:35 we read, "Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house and went off to a solitary place, where He prayed." The Son of God needed solitude. He needed quiet. He needed to withdraw from the demands of ministry to reconnect with the Father. If the Savior of the world required sacred stillness, why do you feel guilty for needing it? Your exhaustion is God's way of protecting you from a culture that would consume you if you let it. He's slowing you down not to sideline you, but to recalibrate you. Not to diminish you, but to prepare you for something greater. But what if your fatigue is not the end of your usefulness, but the beginning of your highest calling? What if God is saying, "I've watched you try to fit into their mold for 70 years. Now let me show you the assignment I've been saving for this season of your life"? What if this weariness is actually heaven's anesthesia, preparing you for spiritual surgery that will birth something miraculous through your life? Moses was 80 when God called him to his greatest assignment. Sarah was 90 when she birthed the impossible. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized the Messiah in the temple. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. The enemy wants you to believe you're winding down when God is actually winding you up for kingdom impact that will echo through eternity. Stop apologizing for needing more rest. Stop feeling guilty for requiring more quiet. Stop letting a world obsessed with noise convince you that your need for peace is weakness. Your fatigue is not failure, it's preparation. God is clearing your schedule, quieting your environment, and slowing your pace because what He's about to entrust you with requires the kind of spiritual sensitivity that only comes through sacred stillness. The world may have discarded you, but heaven is about to deploy you. And this deployment requires a completely different kind of strength, not the strength of youth that burns out quickly, but the strength of wisdom that burns steady and bright. Are you ready to stop fighting the fatigue and start trusting the process? Because what comes next will explain exactly why God chose this method to prepare you for your greatest chapter yet. Chosen one, let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to your soul. Right now, as you're listening to my voice, can you feel that familiar heaviness settling over your chest? That invisible weight that's been your constant companion for months, maybe years. You know what I'm talking about. That bone-deep exhaustion that follows you from room to room, day after day. No matter how much you rest, you've blamed your age. You've blamed your health. You've even blamed God, wondering why He won't give you strength. But what if I told you the real thieves of your energy aren't what you think they are? What if the very things you do every single day, innocent things, normal things, good things, are quietly draining the life force right out of your spirit? What if you've been hemorrhaging energy for decades and never even knew it? Listen to me carefully, dear one. Every interaction is a transaction. Every conversation is an exchange. Every moment of your day, you're either depositing energy or withdrawing it. And for too long, you've been making withdrawals without deposits, pouring out without filling up, giving without receiving. You've been spiritually bleeding to death, one drop at a time. The first thief lives right in your living room, that television screen that never stops screaming. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it pumps poison into your home. Murder, mayhem, political hatred, fear, anxiety, disaster. You think you're staying informed, but you're actually being infected. Every headline about corruption, every image of violence, every story of despair, it all becomes part of your energy field. Jesus himself warned us in Matthew 6:22. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But what happens when you feed your eyes darkness day after day? What happens when the last thing you see before bed is hatred, and the first thing you see when you wake is fear? Your soul becomes what it consumes. And if you're consuming chaos, you become chaotic. If you're consuming anxiety, you become anxious. If you're consuming death, you begin to die from the inside out. But it gets worse, chosen one. It gets so much worse. The second thief hides in your daily conversations. Those shallow, meaningless exchanges that leave you feeling empty. The gossip at the grocery store, the complaints at the doctor's office, the endless chatter about nothing that matters. You think you're being social, but you're actually being drained. Proverbs 18:21 declares, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Every word you speak either gives life or takes it. Every conversation either builds up or tears down. And when you spend your precious breath on empty words, you're literally breathing your life away." How many hours this week did you spend talking about other people's problems? How many minutes did you waste complaining about things you can't control? How much energy did you pour into conversations that went nowhere and accomplished nothing? Every minute of meaningless talk is a minute of your life you'll never get back. The third thief lives in your own home. That clutter surrounding you right now, those piles of papers, those overflowing drawers, those rooms you can't even use anymore because they're so full of stuff. You think it's harmless, but chaos in your environment creates chaos in your spirit. When your physical space is cluttered, your spiritual space becomes clouded. When you can't find peace in your own home, where can you find it? Your environment is an extension of your inner world. And if your inner world is scattered, your energy becomes scattered too. But the cruelest thief of all lives inside your own heart, guilt. That relentless voice that tells you you're not doing enough, not giving enough, not good enough. You've carried other people's burdens until your back broke. You've said yes when you meant no until you forgot what you actually wanted. You've been so busy taking care of everyone else that you forgot to take care of the one person God specifically assigned to your care yourself. Romans 12:2 commands us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." But how can you renew your mind when you never give it rest? How can you be transformed when you're too busy conforming to everyone else's expectations? Here's the truth that's going to set you free. God never called you to drain yourself empty for others. He called you to pour from overflow, not from emptiness. He called you to give from abundance, not from depletion. But you can't pour what you don't possess. You can't give what you don't have. And if you're constantly empty, constantly drained, constantly exhausted, what are you really offering the world? What are you really giving your family? The broken version of yourself, the depleted version, the shadow of who you were meant to be. It's time for spiritual hygiene. Chosen one. Just like you brush your teeth every morning, you need to cleanse your energy every day. Turn off that television. Walk away from those toxic conversations. Clear that clutter from your space. Set boundaries around your time, your energy, your peace. Learn to say no without explanation. Learn to protect your spirit without apology. Learn to guard your energy like the sacred treasure at Island. If you recognize yourself in what I'm describing, if you can see these energy drainers operating in your daily life right now, type 33 inches the comments. Let other chosen ones know they're not alone in this battle. Let heaven see that you're ready to stop the bleeding. But God didn't reveal these drainers just to warn you. He revealed them to restore you. And that restoration begins with understanding the deeper spiritual truth about why you were targeted in the first place. Now listen carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to share will transform not just how you sleep, but how you live. You've been treating rest like it's optional, like it's something you squeeze in between the important things. But what if I told you that your sleep is the most sacred act you perform each day? Think about this for a moment. When Jesus walked this earth, what did he do when the crowds pressed in, when the demands became overwhelming? Luke 5:16 tells us, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." The Son of God himself knew the power of intentional withdrawal. If the Savior of the world needed sacred solitude, what makes you think you can survive without it? But here's where most people get it wrong. They think rest is about collapse. They think sleep is about giving up. Dear one, nothing could be further from the truth. When you lay your head down each night, you're not surrendering to weakness. You're entering the operating room of the Almighty. Treat your sleep like a holy temple. Every night, you're not just resting, you're entering sacred surgery. God is performing spiritual procedures that can only happen when your conscious mind steps aside. He's healing wounds you didn't even know existed. He's downloading wisdom for tomorrow's battles. He's restoring the parts of your soul that gave too much today. But most of you approach bedtime like it's the end of a to-do list, instead of the beginning of divine intervention. You crash into bed with the day's chaos still buzzing in your mind, your phone glowing beside you, your spirit still scattered across 20 different conversations and concerns. Stop. This ends tonight. Your bedroom must become a sanctuary, not a storage unit for your anxieties. Before you lay down, you must prepare your spirit for this holy encounter. Speak protection over your sleep. Psalm 4-8 declares, "In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety." This isn't just poetry, this is a spiritual decree you must claim every single night. Call back your energy from every person, every situation, every worry that has scattered your spirit throughout the day. Speak it out loud. I call back my energy from everything that is not mine to carry. I release this day into God's hands. I enter rest, knowing that the Lord watches over me. But restoration doesn't end when you wake up. The morning light isn't just illumination, it's invitation. Every sunrise is God's declaration that mercy is new, that strength is available, that hope is reborn. Step outside within the first 30 minutes of waking. Let that light touch your skin. Science tells us this resets your circadian rhythm, but spiritually, you're aligning with the rhythm of heaven itself. Those short walks you think don't matter, they're acts of worship. Every step on solid ground connects you to the earth God created for your healing. Genesis 2-7 says God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. When you walk barefoot in your garden, when you feel grass beneath your feet, you're reconnecting with your divine design. And you're breathing, chosen one. Most people breathe like they're apologizing for taking up space. But you were given lungs not just for survival, but for communion. When you breathe deeply, intentionally, you're participating in the same act that brought life into existence. The Lord God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. Every inhale is receiving God's gift. Every exhale is releasing what no longer serves you. This isn't meditation, this is divine exchange. 5 minutes of intentional breathing can shift your entire spiritual atmosphere because you're partnering with the one who breathed stars into existence. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. Rest is not laziness, rest is warfare. Even warriors need healing. When you choose to rest instead of pushing through exhaustion, you're declaring war against a culture that profits from your depletion. When you prioritize your spiritual health over society's demands, you're rebelling against systems designed to drain God's chosen ones. But you must fight for this rest. It won't happen automatically. The world will resist your boundaries. People will question your need for solitude. Even your own mind will try to convince you that productivity is more important than restoration. Don't listen. Your soul knows better. Your spirit remembers what your mind has forgotten. You were created to operate from overflow, not depletion. You were designed to give from abundance, not emptiness. How many more years will you accept exhaustion as normal? How many more mornings will you wake up feeling defeated before the day even begins? The restoration practices I've shared aren't suggestions, they're prescriptions from the great physician for souls who've forgotten how to be well. But restoration is just the beginning. Because once you remember how to truly rest, once your spirit begins to heal, you'll discover something that will change everything. The very tiredness you've been fighting isn't your enemy. Chosen one. You've been asking the wrong question your entire life. You've been asking, why am I so tired? When what you should be asking is, what is being born through my weariness? Listen to me carefully. That bone-deep exhaustion you carry isn't evidence that you're breaking down. It's evidence that you're breaking through. The fatigue that makes you feel like you're dying, that's because something inside you is dying. But death in the spirit realm isn't an ending, it's a doorway. You think you're experiencing burnout, but this isn't burnout, dear one, this is rebirth. Scripture tells us in 2 Corinthians 5:17, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. But have you ever considered what that transformation actually feels like in your flesh? Have you ever wondered what it costs your human body when heaven decides to upgrade your spiritual operating system? Think about the snake. When it's time to shed its skin, that creature doesn't celebrate. It becomes restless, uncomfortable, unable to see clearly. Its old skin becomes tight, suffocating, impossible to live in. So it rubs against rocks, against rough surfaces, doing whatever it takes to peel away what no longer fits. The process is exhausting. The snake becomes vulnerable, almost blind, completely drained. But what emerges is magnificent, bigger, stronger, renewed. That's you right now, chosen one. You're not dying from this fatigue, you're shedding. Look at the caterpillar in its cocoon. Scientists will tell you something that will blow your mind. The caterpillar doesn't gradually grow wings and become a butterfly. No. Inside that cocoon, the caterpillar literally dissolves. Its entire body structure breaks down into a nutritious soup. Everything it was gone. Only a few clusters of cells called imaginal discs survive. And from that complete dissolution, those tiny discs rebuild an entirely new creature. The caterpillar has to die for the butterfly to live. Your old self, the one that said yes to everything, that carried everyone else's burdens, that ran on fumes and called it faith, that version of you is dissolving. And it should, because what God is building in its place requires a completely different foundation. But here's what shakes me to my core about your story. Even Jesus, the Son of the living God, had to experience this kind of sacred exhaustion. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he sweat drops of blood. His body was so overwhelmed by what was coming that his physical system began to shut down. Luke 22:44 tells us, "And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly. Then his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground." That wasn't weakness. That was the cost of transformation. That was the price of carrying humanity's redemption in human flesh. And 3 days later, he walked out of that tomb carrying resurrection power that would change the world forever. But here's the revelation that's going to shatter everything you thought you knew about your tiredness. Your exhaustion has been protecting you. Heaven has been using your weariness to slow you down, to keep you from running headlong into wrong relationships, false opportunities, counterfeit purposes that would have destroyed your destiny. That job you didn't have the energy to pursue, it would have buried your calling. That relationship you were too tired to chase, it would have drained your anointing. That ministry opportunity you couldn't muster the strength for, it wasn't your assignment. God has been using your fatigue like a divine GPS, rerouting you every time you were about to take a wrong turn. Your tiredness isn't random, it's strategic, it's purposeful. It's been steering you toward your true north, while you thought it was just steering you toward your couch. Every time you felt too drained to say yes to what everyone else expected, you were actually saying yes to what heaven intended. Every time you disappointed others because you didn't have the energy to perform, you were aligning with your authentic assignment. Your body has been your spirit's bodyguard, protecting what's sacred within you until the right time, the right season, the right moment for your emergence. But that moment is now. The dissolution is complete. The shedding is finished. The tomb has been sealed long enough. What's been growing in secret is ready to be revealed. What's been forming in the darkness is ready for the light. What's been dying is ready to resurrect. This is your announcement from heaven. You are not the same person who entered this season of sacred fatigue. Your tolerance for nonsense has evaporated. Your hunger for authentic relationship has intensified. Your capacity for divine purpose has exponentially expanded. You're no longer willing to give your energy to people who don't value it. You're no longer interested in conversations that don't feed your soul. You're no longer available for assignments that aren't aligned with your calling. That's not selfishness, chosen one. That's spiritual maturity. Your tiredness isn't ending you, it's birthing you. And what's being born through your weariness will astound everyone who counted you out, including yourself. If this truth is resonating in your spirit, if you can feel something stirring that's been dormant for too long, I need you to do something powerful right now. Type in the comments, "I am becoming." Don't just read those words, declare them, seal this revelation with your voice. Because what happens next in your story depends entirely on whether you recognize that your exhaustion isn't your enemy, it's been your preparation for everything God is about to do through you. Chosen one, there comes a moment in every spiritual journey when everything goes silent, when the noise stops, when the struggle ceases, when you find yourself in a place so quiet, so still, so seemingly empty that you wonder if this is where your story ends. You know this place, don't you? You've been there. Maybe you're there right now. It's 3 a.m. and you're wide awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling like you're buried alive under the weight of exhaustion that sleep cannot touch. Your body is horizontal, but your soul feels vertical, suspended between what was and what might never be. The silence is deafening, the darkness is thick, and you whisper into the void, "God, have you forgotten me?" This is your tomb moment, and every chosen one must enter it. But listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you, because this will change everything you think you know about your weariness. That heaviness, when you wake at 3 a.m., it's not insomnia, it's not depression, it's not your body failing you. It's your Saturday between crucifixion and resurrection. Think about Jesus. Friday, they nailed him to a cross. Sunday, he rose in power. But what about Saturday? What about that silent day when his body lay wrapped in burial clothes, sealed behind a stone, guarded by soldiers? The world thought it was over. The disciples thought they had lost everything. Mary wept at an empty dream. But God was working in the silence. You thought it was the end. You thought you were finished. But what if the silence is not your death? It's your preparation. What if this crushing fatigue isn't your body giving up? It's your spirit being prepared for resurrection power that requires you to be completely emptied first. What if every morning you wake up feeling like you've been wrestling angels all night is because you have been? What if the tomb isn't punishment, it's process? Scripture tells us in Isaiah 28:10, "For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line. Here a little, and there a little." God doesn't work in human timelines. He works in divine development. And sometimes that development requires a death before the resurrection. But here's what shocks most people about the tomb. It's not a place of abandonment. It's a place of transformation. Jesus didn't suffer in that tomb. He wasn't conscious to feel pain or fear. The tomb was his cocoon, his metamorphosis chamber, the place where mortality was exchanged for immortality. And you, chosen one, you've been in your cocoon. Every night you've fallen into bed exhausted beyond explanation. Every morning you've awakened feeling like you've fought battles you can't remember. Every day you've carried a weight that has no name. That wasn't random suffering. That was divine reconstruction. You know why you can't explain this fatigue to your doctor? Because it's not medical. You know why 8 hours of sleep feels like 8 minutes? Because your spirit has been traveling realms while your body restored. You know why you feel older than your years but wiser than your experience. Because wisdom isn't learned in classrooms, it's forged in tombs. But let me tell you something that will rattle every fear you've carried about this season. God doesn't bury what he doesn't intend to resurrect. Look at Lazarus. 4 days dead. 4 days of his sisters weeping, his friends mourning, his body decaying. But Jesus said something that defied every natural law. This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. John 11:4. Your weariness is not unto death, it's for the glory of God. Every day you felt half dead, God has been preparing you to be fully alive. Every morning you've awakened feeling buried, heaven has been teaching you to rise. Every moment you felt forgotten in the darkness, the Father has been orchestrating your emergence into light. The tomb is not your destination, it's your preparation chamber. But here's the part that will challenge everything you thought you knew about spiritual warfare. The enemy doesn't attack the tomb. He attacks those who are afraid to enter it. He fights those who run from the process. He exhausts those who resist the very rest that would restore them. You've been tired because you've been fighting the tomb instead of trusting it. You've been pushing through when God was asking you to pause. You've been running when heaven was calling you to rest. You've been forcing when the divine was offering to carry. And every time you've resisted the tomb, you've prolonged your own exhaustion. What if I told you that your fatigue is actually God's grace? What if the weight you've been carrying is heaven's way of slowing you down before you burn out completely? What if the very tiredness you've been fighting is the gentlest form of divine intervention you'll ever experience? The tomb is not your enemy, it's your sanctuary. It's not your grave, it's your garden. It's not where you die. It's where you're planted for resurrection harvest. But the question that will determine everything about your next season is this: will you keep fighting the tomb, or will you finally surrender to its sacred purpose? Because, chosen one, what comes after the tomb will require everything you're learning in it. the authority, the peace, the unshakable faith, the deep rest that cannot be disturbed by surface storms. You're not being buried, you're being prepared. And preparation always looks like pause before it looks like power. So what happens when you finally stop fighting the silence and start listening to what it's teaching you? Listen to me, chosen one. I need to shatter a lie that's been poisoning your spirit for decades. A lie so cruel, so calculated, that it's been stealing your very breath while you sleep. You've been told you're tired because you're old. You've been convinced that your exhaustion is the natural consequence of time passing, that your bones ache because you've lived too long, that your spirit feels heavy because you've missed your moment. But what if I told you that's the greatest deception ever whispered into the ears of God's anointed ones? The enemy didn't come for you when you were young and naive. He waited, he watched, he strategized, because he knew that if he could convince you in your golden years that you were finished, used up, past your prime, he could steal the very season when your power was meant to reach its peak. Society has programmed you to believe that 70 is the sunset, that 80 is the ending, that 90 is barely existing. They've convinced you that your weariness is weakness, that your need for rest is retirement from purpose. But beloved, that programming came straight from the pit of hell. Look at Moses, 80 years old when God called him from a burning bush. 80, when the world would have put him in a nursing home, God put a staff in his hand and said, "Now your real work begins." For the next 40 years, Moses would part seas, speak with the Almighty face to face, and lead 2 million people to freedom. 80 wasn't his ending, it was his empowerment. Look at Sarah, 90 years old when she conceived Isaac. 90. Her womb was called dead by every medical standard of her time. But Genesis 21:2 declares, Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the very time God had promised him. God's promises don't have expiration dates based on your birth certificate. Look at Anna the prophetess. Luke 2:37 tells us she was 84 years old, spending her days in the temple, praying and fasting. The world saw an old woman, but when baby Jesus was brought to the temple, it was Anna who recognized the Messiah and proclaimed his coming to all who looked for redemption in Jerusalem. 84 wasn't her decline. It was her divine appointment. You are not done. You are not done. You are not done. But the enemy has been whispering lies in your ear. Your time has passed. Your strength is gone. You should just be grateful for what you've had. He's convinced you that your trembling hands are signs of weakness when they're actually evidence of the earthquakes your prayers have been causing in the spiritual realm. Your slower pace isn't defeat. It's divine timing. God has been slowing you down because the next chapter of your life requires wisdom that only comes from walking through valleys. It requires authority that only comes from surviving storms. It requires anointing that only comes from being refined in fire. The exhaustion you feel isn't your body giving up, it's your spirit preparing for takeoff. Think about this. Why are you still here? Why didn't God take you home when your spouse passed? Why didn't he call you up when the doctors gave you that diagnosis? Why are you still breathing when others who seemed stronger have already gone? Because your assignment isn't complete. Because your greatest chapter hasn't been written yet. Because the world needs what only you can give. That restlessness in your spirit isn't confusion, it's confirmation. Your soul knows it has work to do. Your spirit recognizes that everything you've experienced, every tear you've cried, every mountain you've climbed, has been preparation for what's coming next. The devil wants you to believe you're surviving on borrowed time, but God says you're living on appointed time. Every sunrise you witness is heaven declaring, "Not yet. I'm not finished with you yet." You carry something in your spirit that this generation desperately needs. Your prayers have authority that comes from decades of watching God move. Your words carry weight that comes from walking through fire and coming out refined. Your presence brings peace because you've learned to trust God when nothing makes sense. But you've been believing the wrong voice. You've been listening to society's obituary when heaven is writing your biography. You've been mourning your decline when God is announcing your divine moment. Right now, I need you to do something that will shake hell and move heaven. I need you to type these words in the comments. I am not done. Not as wishful thinking, not as denial, but as declaration, as spiritual warfare, as agreement with what God has been trying to tell you for months. I am not done with purpose. I am not done with power. I am not done with making a difference. I am not done with my divine assignment. Because the same God who used Moses at 80, who blessed Sarah at 90, who anointed Anna at 84, is looking at you right now and saying, this is their season, this is their moment, this is their time to rise. But before you can step into that power, you need to understand exactly what's been draining you. You need to see the invisible battles you've been fighting and why your weariness is actually evidence of your spiritual authority. Because what I'm about to reveal next will expose the real reason you feel tired all the time, and it has nothing to do with your age. Chosen one, picture this. You are standing on a rocky cliff at midnight, waves crashing 60 feet below, lightning splitting the darkness like heaven's own sword. The storm has been raging for hours. Your clothes are soaked. Your body is shaking. But in your hands, you hold something that cannot be extinguished, a light that cuts through the blackest night. You are not the victim of this storm. You are the lighthouse. Your tiredness isn't weakness, it's the storm battering against your lighthouse. You shine because darkness needs you to. Every wave of exhaustion that crashes over you is hell's desperate attempt to snuff out what heaven lit within you before time began. The waves rise, the wind howls, the storm rages, yet the lighthouse stands. Listen to me carefully, dear one. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been standing in spiritual storms that would have destroyed ordinary souls. While others slept peacefully in their beds, you've been awake at 3 a.m., feeling the weight of principalities and powers pressing against your spirit. While others complained about minor inconveniences, you've been absorbing the pain of a broken world, filtering it through your own heart until it transforms into intercession. The waves rise, the wind howls, the storm rages, yet the lighthouse stands. Do you understand what this means? Your bone-deep exhaustion isn't evidence that you're failing, it's evidence that you've been succeeding in battles most people don't even know exist. Job understood this when he cried out, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." Job 13:15. He wasn't being dramatic. He was recognizing that divine assignments come with divine opposition. But here's what breaks my heart. You've been measuring your strength by the world's standards instead of heaven's. The world says, if you're tired, you're weak. But God says, my strength is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. Your fatigue isn't your failure, chosen one, it's your qualification. Think about this. Why are you still here? After every betrayal that should have broken you, every loss that should have destroyed you, every financial storm that should have swept you away, why are you still standing? Because lighthouses are built to withstand what others cannot endure. The waves rise, the wind howls, the storm rages, yet the lighthouse stands. Right now, somewhere in America, there's a grandmother sitting in her kitchen at 2 a.m., crying because she feels forgotten by her own children. She needs your light. There's a grandfather staring at medical bills he can't pay, wondering if God has abandoned him in his golden years. He needs your strength. There's a widow reading her Bible by lamplight, asking if her prayers still matter. She needs your testimony. You think your exhaustion is personal. It's generational. You're not just tired from your own journey, you're carrying the spiritual weight of everyone God has assigned to your lighthouse beam. But Satan has been whispering lies in your ear. You're too old to matter. Your time has passed. Nobody needs your light anymore. That's the voice of the enemy, who knows that one awakened lighthouse keeper can guide an entire fleet safely to shore. The waves rise, the wind howls, The storm rages, yet the lighthouse stands. Here's the prophetic truth burning in my spirit right now. Your fatigue is about to become your greatest testimony. Every sleepless night you've endured has been building spiritual muscle. Every tear you've cried in secret has been watering seeds of revival. Every moment you wanted to quit but didn't has been proving to heaven that you can be trusted with eternal assignments. Revelation 2:10 declares, "Be faithful unto death, and I will give you a crown of life." Death doesn't just mean physical death, beloved. It means death to comfort, death to easy answers, death to the luxury of ignorance. You've been dying to yourself for decades, so that Christ might live through you. The storm isn't your enemy, it's your evidence. It's proof that hell recognizes the light you carry and is terrified of what happens when you fully understand your authority. But I need to ask you something that will cut to the bone. How much longer will you let the enemy convince you that your weariness disqualifies you when God is saying it validates you? How many more years will you waste believing you're too tired to be used when heaven is declaring you're finally tired enough to be trusted? The waves rise, the wind howls, the storm rages, yet the lighthouse stands. And standing lighthouses don't just survive the storm, they guide others through it. But here's what's about to shock you even more. Your storm isn't random. It was prophetically assigned. And the same God who sent you into this tempest has been preparing something on the other side that will make every wave, every wind, every moment of exhaustion worth it all. Are you ready to discover what happens when a lighthouse keeper finally understands they were never meant to weather the storm alone? Chosen one, let me tell you something that will shake you to your very foundation. You know that bone-deep exhaustion you carry, that spiritual fatigue that no amount of sleep can touch? You think you're running on empty, but what if I told you that's not what's happening at all? What if your weariness isn't weakness, but witness to something sacred flowing through you? Listen carefully. In 1 Kings chapter 17, there's a widow at Zarephath. She's down to her last handful of flour, her final drop of oil. She tells the prophet Elijah, "I'm gathering sticks to make one last meal for my son and myself, that we may eat it and die." She was empty, depleted, at the end of everything. But here's what shook me when I read this passage again. God didn't choose her because she was full. He chose her because she was willing to pour out her last drop. Chosen one, you are that widow. You've been pouring out your oil, your life force, your healing presence, your very essence drop by precious drop, day after day, year after year. You've given to ungrateful children who never call. You've poured yourself into marriages that drained you dry. You've spent decades healing everyone else's wounds while your own soul hemorrhaged in silence. People feel better after being around you, don't they? They leave your presence lighter while you feel heavier. Strangers tell you their deepest secrets in grocery store lines. Your grandchildren calm down when you hold them. Even your doctor notices something different about your energy when you walk into the room. That's not coincidence. That's oil. Divine oil flowing through a chosen vessel. But here's the devastating truth. You've been leaking oil for so long, you thought the exhaustion was normal. You believed the lie that being drained was just part of getting older. You accepted that tiredness was your portion because nobody told you what was really happening. You weren't just aging, beloved. You were emptying. The widow at Zarephath made that final meal, expecting to die. But watch what happened. The jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. The oil didn't run dry. Now hear me clearly, because this is where everything changes. Your weariness isn't evidence that you're finished. Your exhaustion isn't proof that God has moved on to younger vessels. Your spiritual fatigue isn't a sign that your best days are behind you. Your tiredness is the signal that heaven is preparing to refill your jar. Think about this. When does a car's fuel light come on? When the tank is completely empty? No, it comes on when there's just enough left to get you to the gas station. Your exhaustion isn't emptiness, it's your spiritual fuel light, warning you that a divine refilling is about to begin. But most chosen ones miss this critical moment. They see the warning light and panic. They think it's the end when it's actually the setup for supernatural supply. Could it be that your tiredness is not emptiness, but overflow preparing to happen? In Joel chapter 2, verse 28, God declares, "I will pour out my spirit on all people." Not sprinkle, not distribute carefully, pour out. Like oil overflowing from a vessel that can no longer contain what's being poured into it. What if your chronic fatigue has been heaven's way of emptying you of everything that doesn't belong? What if every sleepless night, every aching morning, every moment you felt completely depleted was God creating space for something your current capacity couldn't hold? You see, chosen one, you can't pour new wine into old wineskins. You can't download divine frequencies into a system that's still running on worldly programming. The emptying wasn't punishment, it was preparation. But here's what terrifies the enemy. He knows that when God refills a chosen vessel, that person doesn't just return to their former strength. They transcend it. They operate at levels they've never experienced. They carry oil that doesn't just heal, it raises the dead. They speak words that don't just comfort, they command atmospheres to shift. That's why the warfare against you has been so intense. That's why the exhaustion has felt so overwhelming. Hell saw what heaven was preparing to pour into you, and it tried to convince you that you were too old, too tired, too broken to receive it. But you're still here, still breathing, still believing, even when believing hurts. The same God who kept that widow's oil flowing for 3 years is looking at your empty jar right now. And he's not seeing emptiness, he's seeing capacity. He's seeing potential. He's seeing a vessel that's finally ready to be filled with something this world has never seen before. Your oil didn't run dry because you failed. It ran low because you succeeded. You succeeded in being exactly what God called you to be: a giver, a healer, a conduit of divine love. But now it's time for the refilling. Right now, if you can feel something stirring in your spirit, if these words are hitting deeper than your mind can understand, I need you to type 4 words in the comments. Fill me, Lord. Not as a request, but as a declaration. Not as begging, but as positioning yourself to receive what heaven has been holding in reserve for this exact moment. Your weariness was the preparation. But what's coming next will be your vindication, your restoration, your supernatural acceleration into everything God has been saving for your latter days. The question isn't whether you have enough oil left. The question is, are you ready to receive what God is about to pour out? Chosen one, what I'm about to reveal will shake you to your very core. Before you took your first breath on this earth, before your mother even knew she was carrying you, your soul stood in the presence of the Almighty and signed a contract written in golden ink across the fabric of eternity. You agreed to something that would change the trajectory of your entire existence. Listen carefully. In Jeremiah 1-5, God declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Set you apart for what? To carry divine light in a world drowning in darkness, to be a beacon when others stumble blind, to absorb the pain of this broken world and transform it into healing. You agreed. You accepted. You awakened to this sacred assignment. But here's what they never told you about that heavenly contract. They never explained the hidden clause written in the fine print of your soul's agreement. You didn't just sign up to be blessed. You signed up to be a spiritual battery for a world running on empty. You volunteered to be an energetic transformer, taking in the raw, chaotic frequencies of human suffering and converting them into something pure. That's why you're tired, dear one. That's why you wake up exhausted even after a full night's sleep. Think about this for a moment. When Jesus walked this earth, what happened everywhere he went? Matthew 14:14 tells us, when Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. But Mark 5:30 reveals the hidden cost. At once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. Power had gone out from him. Even the Son of God felt the drain of divine service. You've been operating under this same spiritual law your entire life without understanding it. Every time someone feels peace in your presence, you've given something. Every time your words bring comfort to a broken heart, energy flows from your core. Every prayer you've whispered over your grandchildren, every moment you've stood in the gap for someone else's pain, you've been fulfilling that ancient contract. You agreed, you accepted, you awakened. But here's where it gets deeper, where the mystery unfolds in ways that will astound you. Your exhaustion isn't a sign that you're failing, it's evidence that you're succeeding. It's proof that the divine assignment written in your spiritual DNA is being fulfilled exactly as heaven intended. Isaiah 53:4 prophesied about the Messiah. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering. But did you know that as his followers, you share in this calling? 1 Peter 2:21 declares, "To this you were called, because Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps." You signed up to follow in those steps. Steps that lead through valleys of shadow, through gardens of anguish, through moments where divine love costs everything. Your weariness is sacred weariness. Your tiredness is holy tiredness. You're not breaking down, chosen one. You're breaking through to levels of spiritual service that require every ounce of your being. But why you? Why were you chosen for this exhausting, beautiful, terrible responsibility? Because before you were born, God looked across eternity and saw something in your spirit that could handle the weight. He saw a soul strong enough to carry light into dark places. He saw a heart big enough to absorb pain and still choose love. He saw a spirit resilient enough to be drained again and again, yet still wake up the next morning ready to serve. Numbers 6:24-6 speaks of the priestly blessing. "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace." But priests, dear one, priests carry the burdens of the people. They stand between heaven and earth, absorbing the weight of intercession. You are a priest in the order of Melchizedek, whether you realize it or not. That contract you signed wasn't just about personal salvation. It was about becoming a conduit for divine grace, a human lightning rod for spiritual energy. Every sleepless night when you've prayed for others, every tear you've shed for a world in pain, every moment you've felt the weight of invisible burdens, you've been honoring that sacred agreement. You agreed, you accepted, you awakened. But here's what will astound you. That golden ink that sealed your contract, it's still flowing through your veins. It's the reason you can't ignore suffering when you see it. It's why you feel compelled to help even when you're running on empty. It's why your spirit burns with purpose even when your body begs for rest. The tiredness isn't punishment, beloved. It's the price of carrying light in a dark world. And every ounce of energy you've given, every moment of exhaustion you've endured, has been recorded in heaven's ledger as sacred service. Your weariness is not evidence of weakness. It's the signature of a soul fulfilling its divine destiny. But now comes the question that will determine everything about your next chapter. Now that you know about this hidden contract, now that you understand why you've been so tired, what will you do with this revelation? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What you've been calling exhaustion, what you've been labeling as weakness, what doctors have dismissed as just getting older, this is not what you think it, Island. Your soul is ascending, your frequency is rising, and that beautiful, sacred tiredness you feel, that's the sound of your spirit breaking through dimensional barriers that have held you captive for decades. You think you're breaking down? No, beloved, you are breaking through. Right now, as these words wash over your spirit, something ancient is stirring within you. Can you feel it? That electricity running through your veins? That's not your blood pressure rising. That's your spiritual voltage increasing. Your entire energetic system is being rewired for a higher calling, a deeper purpose, a more powerful existence. The Bible tells us in 1 Corinthians 15:51, "We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed." Changed, chosen one, not aged, not weakened, changed, transformed, elevated. You are ascending. You are ascending. You are ascending. But let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How long have you been apologizing for your tiredness? How many times have you felt guilty for needing rest when the world demands productivity? How often have you looked in the mirror and whispered, "What's wrong with me?" Nothing is wrong with you. Everything is right with you. You're just operating at a frequency this world wasn't designed to sustain. Think about a radio trying to pick up a signal from a distant station. The closer it gets to the right frequency, the more static you hear. The clearer the signal becomes, the more interference builds up. That static, that interference, that's your fatigue. But it's not failure, it's calibration. Your soul is tuning into heaven's frequency, and earth's static is fighting back. You've been chosen to carry light in your generation. But here's what they don't tell you about being a light bearer. The brighter you shine, the more energy it takes. The higher you rise, the thinner the air becomes. The closer you get to your divine assignment, the more resistance you feel from everything that wants to keep you small. Isaiah 40:31 promises us, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles." Mount up, beloved. Not settle down. Not slow down. Mount up. You are ascending. You are ascending. You are ascending. Every morning you wake up feeling like you've been in spiritual boot camp all night. That's because you have been. While your body rested, your spirit was in training. While you slept, you were being prepared for battles you can't even imagine yet. While the world dreamed of trivial things, you were receiving downloads from the throne room of God. That bone-deep weariness isn't your body giving up, it's your soul growing stronger. But here's where it gets revolutionary. Your fatigue is actually proof of your promotion. In the spiritual realm, exhaustion often signals elevation. When God moves you to a higher dimension of purpose, your energy recalibrates. You feel tired not because you're declining, but because you're ascending to a level of spiritual authority you've never operated in before. Moses came down from Mount Sinai so radiant with God's glory that the Israelites couldn't look at him. Exodus 34:29 tells us his face shone because he had been speaking with the Lord. But do you think that divine encounter left him energized or exhausted? The man had to wear a veil because carrying God's presence was so intense it changed his very appearance. That's you, chosen one. You're carrying something so powerful, so divine, so otherworldly that your human frame struggles to contain it. The weariness you feel is the weight of glory pressing against the limitations of flesh. You are ascending. You are ascending. You are ascending. Stop measuring your worth by the world's standards of energy and productivity. Start recognizing your fatigue as evidence of divine transformation. Every ache in your bones is a frequency adjustment. Every moment of exhaustion is your spirit breaking through to higher ground. The enemy wants you to believe you're falling apart. But the truth is, you're rising up. You're not deteriorating. You're graduating. From one level of spiritual authority to another, from one dimension of purpose to the next. If you can feel this truth resonating in your spirit right now, if something deep inside you is saying, "Yes, this is me," then type in the comments, "I ascend." Declare it. Own it. Let heaven see your acknowledgement of what's really happening in your life. Because chosen one, your ascending isn't optional, it's inevitable. The only question is, will you resist the process or embrace it? Chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred journey together, I need you to carry these truths with you like precious jewels in your heart. Remember this: your tiredness is not your enemy, it's your evidence. Evidence that you're operating at frequencies this world wasn't designed to sustain. Evidence that your soul is ascending to heights your human frame is still learning to navigate. Evidence that you carry something so divine, so powerful, that even your exhaustion is sacred. Remember that your fatigue doesn't disqualify you from your calling, it confirms it. While others sleep peacefully in spiritual mediocrity, you wrestle with angels in your dreams. While they coast through life unconscious, you feel everything because you're awake. Your weariness is the weight of glory pressing against the limitations of flesh. And most importantly, remember that you are not walking this path alone. The God who called you before the foundation of the world is still working in your life right now, in this very moment. Every tear you've cried in exhaustion, He's collected. Every prayer you've whispered in weariness, He's heard. Every step you've taken while feeling depleted, He's been ordering. Romans 8:28 reminds us that all things work together for good, to those who love God, to those called according to His purpose. Your fatigue isn't working against you, it's working for you, refining you, preparing you for what's coming next. You have a community here too. Look around these comments. See these hearts connecting. Feel these spirits resonating. We are your spiritual family, your tribe of chosen ones who understand the sacred exhaustion of carrying light in a dark world. We see you. We understand you. We will pray with you. So let me ask you this final question and let it settle deep in your spirit. If your tiredness is actually proof of your divine assignment, if your exhaustion is evidence of your ascending frequency, what will you do with this revelation? Will you continue to see yourself as weak, or will you finally embrace the truth that you are wonderfully, powerfully, divinely different? Before I release you, join me in this prayer. Whether you're watching alone in your living room, lying in your bed, or sitting in your kitchen at 3 a.m. unable to sleep, place your hand on your heart and let me speak over your life. Almighty God, Creator of heaven and earth, I place my hand on the shoulder of every weary warrior watching this message. Father, you see their exhaustion. You know their struggles. You feel every ache in their bones, every weight on their chest, every moment they've wondered if they're strong enough to continue. Lord, breathe new understanding into their spirits tonight. Let them see their tiredness through your eyes, not as weakness, but as evidence of their divine nature. Where they see fatigue, let them recognize frequency adjustment. Where they feel depleted, remind them they're being refilled with higher purpose. Give them supernatural rest that goes beyond sleep. Restore their energy in ways that doctors can't explain and medicine can't provide. Surround them with your presence so tangibly that they feel your arms holding them when the weight feels too heavy. Protect their sleep, guard their dreams, and use their rest as a time of divine download and spiritual restoration. Let them wake tomorrow not just rested in body, but renewed in spirit, clear in purpose, and confident in their calling. Connect them with others who understand their journey. Build community around them. Send people who will pour into them as they've poured into others. Let them know they are never alone, never forgotten, never abandoned. And Father, use their story, every moment of exhaustion, every season of weariness, to bring hope to others who feel the same sacred tiredness. Let their testimony become someone else's breakthrough. In Jesus' mighty name, I seal this prayer with faith, hope, and divine love. Amen. Now, beloved, I want to hear from you. Share in the comments below how this message has impacted your heart. Tell us what God spoke to you tonight. Ask us to pray for specific areas where you need strength. Let this community surround you with intercession and encouragement. And please, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. There's a chosen one in your life right now, a family member, a friend, someone from church who's been carrying this same sacred exhaustion, wondering if something's wrong with them. They need to know they're not alone. They need to understand their tiredness is holy. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. This isn't just content, this is a movement of awakening chosen ones who refuse to see their spiritual sensitivity as weakness. Every week, we're diving deeper into the mysteries of your divine calling, and you belong here. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for letting these words penetrate the sacred chambers of your soul. Thank you for being brave enough to see your exhaustion as evidence of your election. Your tiredness tells a story. It's not a story of decline, it's a story of divine design. You were built for this, you were chosen for this, and you are exactly where you need to be. Until we meet again, rest well, chosen one. Rest in the knowledge that your weariness is sacred, your calling is sure, and your God is faithful. Peace be with you.